Assalamu alaikum and good morning. You are tuned in to Salam Media, the mid-morning talk show with myself, Asiha Davids. I am your host for this week. And today is World Humanitarian Day. We just jumped off an interview now exploring the Sudanese crisis and how women and children has been disproportionately affected. And we were able to engage with a member of MSF, that is Doctors Without Borders, exploring the dire situation of the conflict in Sudan. We're moving to Palestine now, and the dire situation that journalists have been forced to operate and work under. The conditions has been beyond deplorable, to say the least. We are joined in with Carien du Plessis, South Africa correspondent for the Africa Report. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much, and good morning to you. I'm good, thank you.
Carien, Israel's media massacre in Gaza has been deplorable, and the recent killing of Anas al-Sharif caused global and local protest for journalists and the outcry for media houses to do more and report the truth. The reality of journalists in Gaza is that it's been multi-layered, in that they were telling the story, but they were also the story itself. Um, and then obviously, given the severe conditions that they have been and are currently working under, as a journalist yourself, how do you process the scale of the killings of Palestinian journalists in Gaza, which some are calling a media massacre?
Yes, it is unbelievable how many journalists were killed, and not just as accidents, not just sort of getting in the crossfire or working in a area that's deemed dangerous, which they did, but they were actually actively targeted. And it's really sad, because you rely on these journalists to bring coverage from what's happening there, and with the killing of the journalists, the witnesses, those who are bringing reliable news from there, it's getting increasingly few. And as South Africa's case at the ICJ, saying that, trying to make a case for a genocide. If you don't have people documenting these things, if you don't have reliable witnesses documenting these things, it becomes impossible eventually to know what was going on. So it's sad. It really made me sad when I heard about the death of the Al Jazeera journalists last week. It made me sad. I mean, it was soon after the beginning of this current conflict, when a colleague of mine from Reuters was killed, a Lebanese colleague who stood in Lebanon filming Israeli attacks, into Lebanon, and they targeted him and killed him. And there's just no excuse for it. It's the Israel government always say, or the IDF is always saying, there's, they got in the line of fire. It's unclear how this happened, but from the beginning it was clear that these journalists were targeted. My Reuters colleague was targeted, and now Israel's not even hiding it anymore. They're admitting to it, and it's sad, and it's something that it's just, I mean, as far as I know, this is on a scale that's unprecedented, um, and and we should speak out. I think journalists in South Africa should speak out. Journalists all over the world should speak out, because it's. We should not allow this to become a norm. We should not allow this to be okay.
Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us there, Karine. And I think you touched on some pivotal points. I mean, even Israel killing journalists, and I'm so sorry for your loss recently in Lebanon as well. Israel, do you think Israel's deliberately targeting a journalist at this point? And I mean, if we were to take a more reflective stance, what is the role of media in this war? And you touched on it earlier when you spoke about, even with the ICJ case, what these journalists are reporting would then serve as evidence for this case. And so by killing off journalists, that definitely affects the legal battle on an international scale as well. But I mean, let us take a moment to kind of reflect on whether this, is, in your opinion, a deliberate target on journalism by Israel, and what is the role of media in this war, more holistically?
Yes, I mean, I think Israel in the latest attack, on Al Jazeera, I think the IDF actually, they admitted that they targeted Anas al-Sharif because they said he was a Hamas militant, or he was, which as far, I mean, I didn't know him personally, but as far as I can gather from other journalists who knew him, this was not true, and it was just an excuse, and to wipe him out, and it's. I mean, yeah, if you think back about when South Africa, when we opened our case, or when we made the, initial arguments at the ICJ, our lawyers were there. They relied on media reports, and even then, Israel was saying, "Oh, this is just media reports. This is just propaganda." But they relied on media reports to make their case, and I think a lot of the case will hinge on media reports and on reliable media reports. So, by killing journalists, you're killing these people who document who document a potential genocide, or who are documenting conflicts, who are documenting war crimes. I mean, last year I met some journalists in Ukraine who were deliberately, they were teaching other journalists that when if you report an attack, if you report a bombing, look for these clues, ask these questions, and the journalists would gather their information in such a way that it would be legally permissible for if there is a hearing on war crimes. I think perhaps at the ICC or wherever, or a tribunal, that the evidence that they gather can be admitted at a hearing like that. So and in the case, I mean, in Gaza, if you kill these people, if you kill journalists who are witnesses to this, you kill any possible case. So I mean, because I was thinking about it as well, journalists, yes, as a journalist, I should stand up for fellow colleagues are being killed, but I mean, all those killings have been bad in Gaza. Killing children, killing humanitarian workers. I mean, you're saying it's World Humanitarian Day today. So many humanitarian workers have been killed, and we should be standing up for all of that. It's been really, really heartbreaking to see what is happening there, and perhaps more heartbreaking about how quiet some world leaders have been about this, and what a lack of sense of urgency there is about this situation.
Thank you so much for that, Carien, and I mean, I think for us to explore that sense of urgency, and also what does that mean for press freedom globally going forward, is something for us to dive into right after this break.
Sure.
You need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
Conveniently located along the banks of the Crocodile River bordering the Kruger National Park. As a guest at Buckler's Africa Lodge, one can enjoy an amazing sunrise or sunset on our spacious deck area while you catch a glimpse of some wildlife sightings along the Crocodile River. The sounds of the African savannah will greet you whilst you enjoy your morning coffee. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Buckler's Africa Lodge is ideally situated only 6 kilometers from the Crocodile Bridge Gate in the Kruger National Park. Catering for all travelers with variety, we have 4 types of the finest rooms: superior rooms, deluxe suites, and 2-bedroomed family units. Each room is equipped with the finest amenities to make your stay unforgettable. Guests can choose between the self-catering option or book their accommodation with breakfast and dinner included. Buckler's Africa Lodge is your ideal location for the ultimate Kruger getaway experience. We specialize in exhilarating and educational game drives in Kruger, tailor-made to suit your family. Inquire about our various accommodation offerings and other activities. Visit www.tingana.com. tingana.co.za for more information. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Experience the pulse of Africa with us.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic, Sharia, and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
It's a new beginning. It's a new era. Salam Media, humanitarian journalism.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Welcome back to our listeners and viewers. You are tuned in to the mid-morning talk with myself, your host, Fasiha Davids, for this week. And we are joined by Carien du Plessis on the line, Southern Africa correspondent for the Africa Report and journalist. We were just exploring Israel's media massacre in Gaza and the way it kind of unfolded in this past few years, including the fact that Anas al-Sharif's recent killing has caused an upsurge for journalists locally and globally. Carien, thank you again for being with us. I mean, just before the ad break, you touched on some pivotal points, and those being they are central world leaders that are still very quiet when it comes to the matter of Palestine. And so they are not, quote unquote, doing enough, maybe, to and I'm interested to hear maybe your thoughts around that, for journalists, for the reporting, for media in their own countries, but then also what does this mean for press freedom globally? And I want us to really tie it back to South Africa and what it means for press freedom here. We are able to celebrate freedom of speech in our own country, and we know that this is impossible for journalists in Gaza, given that they are being targeted, and like we said, that even affects evidence at the ICJ case on an international scale. So if we can explore this meaning of now press freedom globally.
Yes, I mean that as you mentioned, we are particularly privileged in South Africa that we don't have laws that restrict that restrict our freedom to report. I mean, there are obviously certain rules within which we should report, but yeah, in South Africa, and I think, I mean, what we've seen over the past sort of week or so, when South African journalists actually, we have the freedom of assembly, we have a freedom to hold vigils and to protest and to raise this matter and to amplify this matter on various platforms. So I think in that sense, it is good that South African journalists are speaking out for this, that they are, telling the story. But globally, oh gosh, yeah, I can't say that I have experience of working in media freedom globally, but I mean, we're seeing in big countries that serve as role models for, I don't know, for us on the continent. I'm thinking about the United States, for example. That's always been a role model in terms of democracy, freedoms, individual freedoms that people enjoy, freedom of the press. We're seeing a clampdown of media freedoms there. The president closing down certain media outlets, linked to the state, funded by the. I think funded by the U.S. government. I forgot which arm now. Voice of America, for example. Some journalists being banned from the White House from reporting there. So we're seeing this all over. We're seeing a narrowing of space where the media has had freedoms to report before. The space is now narrowing. I mean, I'm not even talking about other countries at war. Perhaps Russia. Where media freedom has been restricted for a while. So, and I mean, as I said before, it's having a government that is normalizing or that's targeting journalists and that are killing journalists with impunity, like Israel has done, and admitting to it. I just really think it bodes badly for media freedom, and we live in an age where journalists, and specifically human journalists, are more important than ever. We live in an age of misinformation and artificial intelligence. I mean, that's the talk amongst myself and colleagues, is what an increasingly big role artificial intelligence plays in generating content. And we don't want to have a world eventually where there are very few human journalists, and we have artificially generated news stories. It would be so easy to just airbrush what's going on anywhere, by producing such stories. Using artificial intelligence to produce such stories. So yes, it's it just doesn't bode well to media freedom. And I think in Israel itself, I'm not intricately aware of the media landscape there, but by all accounts, the media reporting has been very, a lot of Israelis don't know what's happening in Gaza because the mainstream media there isn't telling them. I mean, I think there's one or two newspapers that have critical voices, but it's very important that a fair and balanced story, that the whole picture is being shown. So I think it's just really concerning what is going on there, and what's going on in a time of war and a time of conflict, and how the media is being used as a weapon of war, to either sort of tell a story that's airbrushed, or not being able to tell a story at all.
100%. I mean, Carien, I think you really spoke some truth to power there, and the reality of this genocide, in particularly in Palestine, we were able to kind of see some of that reality, given the live feeds from journalists in Gaza, which, like you said, has become more narrowed over this past few months, including in the US, where journalists are being silenced, that are trying to speak out against this atrocity, of course, using media as a weapon of war. As a South African journalist, how do you think our own media community should be responding to the silencing of colleagues in Gaza? And do you think that we've done enough as journalists here locally to show our solidarity?
I mean, I think we could do more. I mean, I think there have been vigils. Journalists have come out, and in a way, South Africa, South African government has taken this case to the ICJ, and in my view, South Africa is on the right side of history in this regard. But I guess keeping the pressure on, and keeping the memory alive of those journalists, and apart from having vigils, I think we should use our freedoms responsibly to report truthfully, and to and I also think in terms of trying to find trying to see different sides of a story, because also this whole conflict has been, or conflict in general. I mean, look at Russia, Ukraine. Look at in Ethiopia, the Tigray, the war in Tigray that's been going on, that went on for a few years. It's very polarizing in this age of social media, and finding the human stories, finding the nuances. Reporting about those Israelis that are, protesting against the war, reporting, where human beings are trying to make peace, trying to find that, bring people closer together, let them debate and find a way to get them to talk. Because that's the one thing we're good at in South Africa, despite the contentious national dialogue. We have those freedoms to get people to talk. So I think if the media can do that, foster greater understanding about the humanitarian conditions in Gaza. Although, I mean, having said that, it just really feels overwhelming sometimes. It just really feels that, I mean, there should be a way for world leaders to speak out too, and sometimes, I mean, the best we can do is to keep trying. I sometimes do feel that South African journalists are not heard in their own country sometimes when we report on other issues. But I do think we should always keep trying, keep trying to tell the story, keep trying to to get people to listen to listen to each other, to see what is happening, to understand them, to understand each other better.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's Carien du Plessis, correspondent for Southern Africa, for the Africa Report rather, and journalist. Thank you so much for joining us. We've explored what press freedom means globally and locally for South Africans.
Thank you so much for inviting me.